Have you ever heard the stat that women speak 20,000 words a day and men only speak 7,000? Well, it's bullshit. The specific numbers will switch around because it's an urban myth, but there's no version of it that's accurate. A few years ago, 2 linguists looked at all the studies on this subject, and only 2 of the 56 that they looked at had women speaking on average more than men. But here's the crazy thing about this myth. It was first published and popularized by James Dobson. That's right, the mega famous conservative Christian psychologist of Focus on the Family. Sorry if you'd gone years without hearing that name and I just ruined the streak. In 1987, he wrote that research makes it clear that women speak twice as much as men. His hard numbers, 50,000 words for women, 25 for men. And then he extrapolates that this causes tension in the home because men come home from work and they've used up their entire word budget for the day and women are just getting started. They're raring to go. And then somehow this fake fact weaseled its way into popular culture. Sometimes it's even cited inadvertently by well-meaning secular mental professionals. They've just heard it so much they assume it's true. So many people believe it. But next time you hear it, you'll know it's bullshit. And you'll be ready to point out that it's sexist, right-wing, evangelical, pseudoscientific propaganda. Wives, obey your husbands in everything is a thing that the Apostle Paul said that I made fun of the other day. And some people commented, you know, he also told husbands to lay their lives down for their wives. No. I know that. It just doesn't matter. Obeying in everything, that's a constant burden. Laying your life down? First of all, who even really needs that very often? Second of all, you can only do it once. Now, some people are going to try to make it a metaphor, but it's still bullshit. Because whatever that metaphor makes laying your life down mean, women are also expected to do it, and they have to obey in everything. Also, what's with the evangelical obsession with defining your love by willingness to die? I would die for you. So goddamn melodramatic. Nobody wants you to die for them. Here's my theory. Calling a willingness to die for someone love uses absolute extreme language to avoid having to do the mundane little things that are actually loving. So no, I don't think Paul is treating men and women equally. Women have to obey constantly, and men just get to be melodramatic dinguses who are willing to give their life should the need ever arise, which it won't. In the meantime, honey, can you hand me the remote? My son had to wear a tie the other day and I asked if he needed help. And of course his answer was, I know how to tie a tie, Dad. Which was news to me because he's never really had a reason to wear one. I remember exactly when and why I learned to tie a tie. I was 10 and I was going on a missions trip by myself. What's a missions trip, you ask? It's a white savior's evangelical vacation that other people pay for. And the org I was going with required dressing up on Sundays and whenever interacting with the public. Thus the need to tie my own tie. This requirement was alongside memorizing the KJV, not talking to girls, and running a mile every morning. Oh, guess where the missions trip was to? One of the darkest places on earth. Florida! That's right, 10-year-old me and my cohort of other pre-adolescents took the message of Jesus and his ghastly demise to Orlando. I mean, if I had to guess who was going to get bathed in the blood of the Lamb, I would put my money on Florida, man. Why am I even telling you this? It's not even a story. Tying a tie, missions trip, Florida. I don't know. Suffice it to say, I look dapper as fuck doing my DC Talk puppet shows. All right, this is getting way too niche. I gotta go. The worst Bible story to teach kids almost never gets called out, even though it's one we've all heard. First, legit trigger warning for violence. It's the Bible. Here we go. The story of Jesus' death. Why is this ridiculous to teach kids? Not because he was torn to shreds with a whip. Not because of the crown of thorns. Not because he had to carry his cross on his raw back. Not because he was nailed to said cross, probably through his wrist so it wouldn't tear out. Not because he hung there for 6 hours. Not because he was stabbed in the lung to make sure he was dead. And not because the other guys who were crucified at the same time had their legs broken so they'd suffocate quicker. Not because of any of that. Which most of us little Christians understood more or less in detail by the time we learned to read. No, the reason this story is fucked up is because kids are taught that Jesus' dad did this to him. His old man orchestrated the whole thing. To be fair, that is a pretty interesting twist. I'd watch that movie. How's there going to be comeuppance for Jesus' dad? Nope. Sorry, kiddo. Jesus' dad is the main character. He's the good guy. And you have to believe it's cool that he offed his kid like this or he's going to do worse to you. Anyway, I'm fine. How are you doing? Hey, if you like it when I feed the evangelical trolls with bullshit content like this, come along. I got more. Did you know that in the 90s, us fundamentalist evangelical teens went through a phase where we threw out all our secular music? All the music that wasn't about God or Jesus? I didn't have any God music, so that means I was throwing out all of it. I remember walking out of my house with a bag of cassettes and dropping that bag into the garbage can, and I felt so much tension. I don't remember what was in that bag in specific except for one artist, Neil Young, which means this was before my Bob Dylan phase, because that continues to this day, so I must have been about 14. And it hurt so bad. In that same era, people were bringing their CDs to church and we would destroy them, like in the gym, smashing them and throwing them around like frisbees. And the only artist I remember from that instance is the Violent Femmes. And I felt the exact same thing as when I was throwing away Neil Young. I love the Violent Femmes. Do you like American music? I like American music. I'm thrilled that that phase is gone, just an embarrassing memory. And you know what phase is not gone? The Violent Femmes. They're coming to town in a couple weeks, and guess who's gonna be front and center? Me, with my teenager, who can listen to whatever sacrilegious music he wants to. You want to know one of the silliest things about being raised devoutly evangelical? Children are expected to read the Bible. If that doesn't seem weird to you, stick with me for a second. You might think of the Bible as "For God so loved the world," or that one emotionally lucid moment Paul had when he wrote about love and now everyone reads it at their weddings. But those are the boring parts. To a kid anyways. While other kids are learning to read with comics or whatever normal parents have around the house, here fundy kids are 6, 7, 8 years old, devouring stories of Jezebel being defenestrated and then eaten by dogs, or Judas's bowels bursting out, or Noah's sons laughing at him when he was passed out drunk and naked, or Lot's daughters who got him drunk and screwed him so they could have babies. And those are just a few highlights off the top of my head, decades later. The good book is full of children's stories like these. It's basically Game of Thrones, except if you don't read it, you go to hell. I almost forgot about all the times I went back to Song of Solomon so I could read about breasts. I'm thinking maybe the message of God's word didn't land on me like it was supposed to. Hey, if you're deconstructing, good for you. There are a lot of serious thinkers out there that can help you navigate this stuff. But if you just want to roll your eyes at how fucking weird it all was, that's what I'm here for. Stick around if you want to. I used to be a fundamentalist. Bit of a Baptist, you know? Which means, among other things, I was obligated to give a substantial amount of my income to my church. A practice called tithing because it sounds better than spiritually manipulative financial coercion. Anyway, I was driving down Lake Street recently and I remembered how bad I used to be at it. I never even came close to the 10% that is minimum if you're gonna make God happy. Pause. I just now noticed how fucking bizarre it is that God is our Father and we're supposed to pay him? Unpause. Yes, I hated myself for never giving enough, but that's okay because fundamentalist Christians are supposed to hate themselves. But in a split second over there on Lake Street, I felt this sense of relief, and it wasn't just because I was on my way to get tacos. I felt this age-old guilt that I didn't even know was there still turn into peace. Like, not only did I not do something wrong way back then, I actually did something right without meaning to. I spent all my money on rent and gas, guitars and CDs, and diapers, formula, baby food, and almost none went to God. For all the horrible ideas and practices I used to be a part of in evangelical Christianity, I didn't personally fund almost any of it, and I'm pretty fucking happy about that. Alright, that's enough religion for a minute. I think my next video is going to be about how awesome clickbait is. Alright, here's the main reason I don't call myself an atheist. Personal opinion, not trying to change anyone's mind. Atheist as a blanket term presupposes a shared understanding of what God is. But that doesn't exist. Some people's God is really concrete, making it easy to disavow. Other people's gods are metaphor by their own account, making it much less necessary or even possible to disagree with. So tell me about your God, and I'll tell you if I'm an atheist. About that God. Like the evangelical God, unequivocal thumbs down. Easy. But if I buy a bottle of bourbon from a Walgreens and share it with a washboard player on a curb in the French Quarter, and then they rhapsodize about how we're all momentary instances of a vast unified self, and they call that self God, well, that's a totally different conversation. Whether I agree with them or not. It doesn't make my life any richer or more interesting to be an atheist in that hour. And even if both ideas are worth rejecting, that self-God is such a different proposition from the Christian God that it feels odd to discount them both at once with a single word. Now, am I splitting hairs, overcomplicating things, and basically just playing with words? Yeah, that's fun for me. It's basically the whole reason I'm here. Thanks for coming along.
Here's a funny inconsistency in evangelical Christianity. They believe that the Bible is perfect, can't be added to, and they think that Jesus is perfect. But you can't have both. If Jesus was perfect, let alone God, then everything he said is similarly worth hearing. And he taught for 3 years. So not everything he expounded upon is in the Bible. If, theoretically, some more words of Jesus were discovered, they would belong in the Bible. But that's not allowed. The Bible's perfect as is. Now, this inconsistency is benign and trivial, and Christians don't really have to face it or deal with it anyway because of the extreme unlikelihood that new words from Jesus will be unearthed. But the funny contradiction remains. Either Jesus is perfect or the Bible is. Not both. We could vote on which one we like better, Jesus or the Bible, since one of them's off the island of perfection. Anyway, if you like a harmless chuckle at Christianity mixed in with your grammar videos, come along. I got more.
I want to say something quickly to a very small subset of my audience, namely young people who still live with their evangelical parents but find themselves doubting the faith that they were raised in. I know that can be a stressful situation, and I want to offer you one simple fact and just hope that it's helpful. Here it is. It couldn't be more straightforward. It is not disrespectful for you to disagree with your parents. It's not disrespectful to disagree with your parents. Don't let anyone make you feel bad for following your own curiosity instead of their lack of curiosity. That's manipulative. Sure, it might be hurtful that you're on your own path, but that's on them. If someone's offended that you're thinking for yourself, that's only their responsibility. If you're kind and fair, but also take ownership of your own mind and follow your own thoughts, even if they lead away from your parents' religion, that's not rebellious. You can't change how they're going to respond or react, but you can know inside yourself that you're all right. You're all right. Oh, there's so much more that could be said, but I'm out of time. Come along for more if you think that'd be helpful.